back at Football-Oranje, your home of Dutch football. Netherlands against Italy is going to be the third place playoff for the Nations League. The Netherlands will be at home in their home tournament, gutting that they didn't get past Croatia semi-final, but they weren't good enough. And we shared that lot in our live stream after the game. Thanks everyone for the positive reactions we had on that. Keep the comments coming on this match preview. We've got the Netherlands against Italy. Let us know your thoughts down below throughout the show, and we'll get back to you in the comments. I'm Mark Statham. I'm joined by Mike Bell, as usual. And Mike, a couple of days on then, we're recording this from the game. How do you feel now?
There's still a sense of just disappointment, frustration, what could have been sort of thing. It's the same whenever, Netherlands lose, and yes, there's still a bit of disappointment sort of lingers on after a few days, and then eventually you get over it when there's another game coming and the excitement comes back. But yeah, just I guess looking back on the game, the initial thing was, a bit of anger and a bit of, frustration towards Koeman, and then the more it kind of goes on, you just think, Croatia were just by far the better side, and that happens in football when you've got to come up against a team that are number 3 in the world for a reason. But I thought Netherlands would put up a better show than that. I think that the Dutch press, I've seen a lot of, it's Croatia, third in the world, Croatia, this like magical team that are so good that we weren't just going to beat them, sort of thing. But I mean, we were at home, and I think we got absolutely dominated from the first minute to the end. So I don't share a lot of comments that there was a lot of good in that match, and there's a lot of things to take from it. I think that for me, there's just a sense of things need to change, whether it's formation, personnel, attitude. Something needs to change, because what the Netherlands have shown now in this game, in the last 200 Koeman, isn't good enough going forward. Like, I have no confidence in this side being able to win the European Championships next year if they qualified at the moment. And that's 3 games into Koeman's reign so far.
Yeah, the reaction from the press was that Croatia are very good and all that, but we know that the Netherlands have these world class always use a lot, perhaps by myself as well, but they do have some really good players, just like Croatia do. But it's who's been coached better, who's got that better mentality in these knockout games, and the answer was Croatia, hands down. And what we wanted to see from the Netherlands was more of a plan, really, attacking wise. That was the first thing, keeping the ball and that kind of thing, because then there's not so much to defend. Seeing 4 goals was not good enough. And the record, I think it was that Van Gaal never lost a game in his 20 games in charge. Now Koeman's lost 2 out of 3. And one of them was Gibraltar, which also wasn't a great watch. It's making us all doubt, isn't it, that Koeman's got what it takes to turn it around into, first of all, this third place playoff game. I don't have high hopes for it. And then going into those European qualifiers again. That even if the Netherlands did qualify, we wouldn't want to watch a team that's played as poorly as that, really. Koeman said he saw progress. What has he been speaking about in these last few days after the match and his pre-match conference? What were the things that he was coming out with? I did see that he's going to go with quite a strong team again. But this week's players again, they're going to be so tired, aren't they?
Yeah. After the game, he said basically that he'll see who's fit, and then he'll make a decision on that in the coming days. But it seems now that the Telegraph came out today and said that he's basically said that he wants to go with the strongest 11 against Italy, because he sees this as, the last warm-up game before these really tough qualifiers in September, must-win games against Greece and Ireland. So it seems like he's going to go with as strong as he possibly can, which to me is, it makes sense on one hand that you'd want to use this time to make sure these players play as much minutes together as possible. On the other hand, you could try something a bit different, because ones that are going to start hasn't worked in the last 3 games. So, yeah, I think in Koeman's other comments, the progress thing, he was getting basically, it was after the game, he was getting put forward that, Van der Vaart and Van Hooijdonk were Kresna and he was coming back a bit, not tetchy, but he was getting a bit irritated in his post-game interviews, basically saying like, oh, but Croatia is a very good side. We're not just going to play them off the pitch. Compared to the game against France, we've seen a lot of progress. He was happy with what he saw, especially in the first half. He thinks that he dominated the first half. Again, I'm not so much in agreement with that. And yeah, he thinks that there's a basis here to take forward. It's the same with Van Dijk. Van Dijk says he saw improvement and they fought like lions. And it's just, it seems a bit strange for me that after 2 games they've been lost and lost quite badly, and especially that second half of extra time when it could have been an absolute slaughter at the end, that both your manager and captain, the main defender, would come up and be like, oh, there's loads of progress here when you've just conceded 4 goals against Croatia at home. So yeah, that worries me a bit because I think Koeman should have come out and said, this still isn't good enough. They're not getting what I want to do. Until we start winning, I'm not going to be happy. But he's coming out with comments that he's seen progress. I guess it's to not kill morale, but he's got to be a bit stricter, be a bit tougher. And if it comes down to the fact that he needs to drop some of the big names, he needs to do it because Frankie de Jong probably thinks he can just walk into this Netherlands side. Van Dijk thinks he's undroppable and he can just make mistake after mistake after mistake. Dumfries probably thinks he's unchallenged. And there's probably a few other names. Gakpo, there's nobody to replace Gakpo. He's going to start every game. So until he creates this culture of you need to fight, you need to play at your best every single time you put on that shirt, nothing's going to change because the players are just like, well, I'm just going to start next game.
Quality players that we've seen play well in the Netherlands before that are not performing at their best. There are still a few facts at play. I picked up on Frank de Jong saying how tired he must be, and he'll be the same against Italy, having to play again a second game in a week. I know, boo-hoo, a poor footballer has been paid lots and lots of money, he has to play 2 games in a week, but the guy's exhausted, and I could see that against Croatia. Someone asked about his fitness, and he said he feels really fit after the game, but I didn't think he looked it. But we have picked up on Dion before in previous years and said how influential he is for the team, how we couldn't imagine a team without him. And it's not like I'm saying he needs to be dropped against Italy. I'm just saying we know he can play better, and he hasn't been playing that well. And you are right, there are a few key players that have been taken out for granted, if you like, that they can just walk into the team. Koeman was the one that put them into and embedded them into that team in the first instance. They shouldn't be taken that for granted from him. That's a shame. But if you were to pick out some of the positives, what could they have been? What is it that Koeman has found? I know you said about keeping morale high, but what were those good things?
I mean, I wrote an article, it's on the website, some observations after the game. And for me, I only picked out 2 that were good. One was Mads Wiefer in midfield. I think he was excellent, and it fell apart when he went off. I think that he is the perfect partner for Frankie going forward. I think that he was the only one that actually got at the Croatian midfield and put his foot in, put some passes forward, got the assist for the goal where he could pass it. There's another shot where he took it over when he should have passed it, but fair enough, he takes a shot. I think he was the only bright spark, and he's been widely praised in the media as the only player that actually came out of the game looking good. And I can agree with that more. The other thing was, I think Noah Lang showed that he can handle this level as well. And he should be, if it's a plan B, he's a pretty good plan B. Or can he start games to be more influential? I think that when he came on, at least he was going to pick up the ball and dribble at some Croatian defenders. Nobody else did that. And I think that he's got that cockiness, that edginess. That's something I sort of miss about Netherlands is you've had it for the years. Like, we go back to the team that was in the 70s, they're very cocky. When you go back to the team that were in the 90s, they had some players that, you would get into the faces of other ones and be a bit cocky. And then you got players like Van Bommel, like Nigel de Jong, who were combative and had a bit of an ego about him. Van Persie had a bit of an ego about him. Like, these are the sort of players that you want to see sometimes playing for the Netherlands, because you can't just be really nicey all the time. And Noah Lang's got an edge about him, and I like that. I like the fact that he thinks he's one of the best players in the world. He thinks he should be playing that top club in Europe. He thinks that he should be doing all these things. And if he comes on the pitch and plays well for the Netherlands, then who's to say he shouldn't? So I think that I'd like to see him whether start a game or get more minutes than 10 minutes at the end. Because I think that he came on and he made a difference. And the second half of extra time, when Koeman decided to go kamikaze and just launch long balls to Van Dijk, that's just taking Noah Lang completely out of the game. So like he didn't have a hope in hell in extra time to impress. But if he gets, say, half an hour against Italy, you might see a bit more from him. I think he's a player that, if he gets a good move this summer, whether it's to PSV or back to Ajax, probably Ajax are back interested in him, and he plays consistently in the Eredivisie and he's impressing, he's a player that could then force his way into being a starter for this Netherlands side. But that's the only two positives I saw from that game.
Okay. Some more of the individual performances then. I see your point about Lang and his attitude, and that cockiness is what makes a team like Ajax so good. Actually, that's what it's that kind of mental fortitude that helps you, makes you better than you are in a way. A couple of other players, one of them's at Ajax now, Owen Wijndal, said the same sort of thing, and it didn't quite work out for him. But yeah, I see what you're saying, that you want Lang and a few other players to have a bit more of that extra drive about them. And looking ahead to the opposition, Italy, I have to admit I didn't see them in their semi-final against Spain when they lost, but it did seem like a close game. Spain, of course, scoring late in that one. What are you expecting from them? Are you expecting a team to come out to want to win? The Netherlands don't seem quite as passionate about perhaps this third place playoff. Will Italy be the team that will just be a bit laissez-faire and just attack because they're going to lose? We see it being a bit more conservative at typical Italy. And which players do you think are the danger men for them to watch out for? Obviously, Croatia at midfield, isn't it? And the Netherlands find that tricky to handle. But what about Italy?
Well, I was quite surprised. So obviously, we know that Italy's European champions beat England in the final. Sorry to bring that up again, but he's Scottish. I can not mention that. But since then, it's kind of gone wrong for them. And after the game, I saw quite a lot of comments basically being like criticizing their manager. So like we have, all this criticism towards Koeman, whereas everyone is now starting to look at Mancini for Italy and saying that, has he done the best that he can on this side? He's making bad errors with team selection. All sounds sort of familiar. And he's keeping players in there that shouldn't be there. So like I think they still play with like Bonucci in defence. There's some players that are not getting picked that people think should be. And it's a similar sort of names up front. I think you start with Immobile, and you see players like Chiesa in there. This for me is an early side that I look at on paper. I don't think it's as strong as it has been in years gone by. I think it's a team that Netherlands should be going out to beat. It's a team that seems to be in the same sort of position that is getting sort of criticised a lot. Not a lot of confidence around there. Maybe Mancini will get them up for the game to try and prove a point, because the press has been quite hard on them after the Spain defeat. But they still have strong players that can cause Netherlands a lot of problems. Like Donnarumma is a really good goalkeeper. He made a lot of saves against Spain, from what I saw. The defence looks a bit of an older defence. Netherlands could probably get that if they got pace, but we said that about Croatia. They'd be able to trouble them with pace, and they didn't. Midfield, players like Verratti is very good. He came off the bench. You've got players like Barella in Milan, who started the finals, but has been linked to Newcastle. Apparently, he's very good. I'm excited to see him in action. And then up front, you got Chiesa, Immobile, players like that who can obviously cause Netherlands damage. And Chiesa is one of these players that I think everyone's sort of excited about a couple of years ago, but really hasn't hit those sort of heights. So I'm interested to see what's become of him. But I don't know enough about this Italy side now. I don't think it's filled with the same star names as years gone by when you knew Italy because you knew of the Totti's, the Del Pieros, Maldinis, the Gattuso's, the big names. I don't think this Italy side has it, and more hardworking, technically good team that can beat you 1-0. That's what I see about the Italy side. So it's up to the Netherlands to show that they want to be there. Some of the players will probably just be like, meh, I'd rather be on the beach. But if they care about Ronald Koeman and if they care about this tactic, the 4-3-3 that they all wanted to play, if they care about that, they should start performing in it. And then this is another game where you can either go out of the tournament in fourth and lose 3 out of 4 games under Koeman, or you can put and show a bit of fight and say, right, we've lost these 2 games. We're sorry about that. But going towards the European qualifiers, we're going to show that we're still a really good side. We're going to beat this Celtic team. And we'll see what Netherlands we get. If it's the Netherlands that doesn't turn up, gets beat 2-3-0 by the Celtic side, then I would say, has Koeman got what it takes to get this Netherlands side up for these games? Because that would show to me that these players don't care.
Ask you a boring question right before a more exciting one. Boring question: what's the 11 going to be against Italy? Because I reckon it's going to be unchanged.
You might be right. Only change that I could possibly see would be in goal, Noppert for Bio, possibly. And then one that would be very unpopular for me would be, because he played 120 minutes against Croatia, would be to take out Koopmeiners and put in Wijnaldum and start with Wijnaldum. I could see that happening. Like, dropping Koopmeiners, I'm not angry about that, but bringing in Wijnaldum at 10 would be a mistake. But I can see it happening. I can see him making those 2 changes. But other than that, I think that pretty much the same 11 is going to start again. Because I think you'll be happy with what Gertrude did. I think you'll be happy with the front 3 in the first half. Maybe the midfield and the goalkeeper will be the ones that he sort of changes a little into this game.
And you talked about Koeman there. If I asked you now, do you think that Koeman will still be the Netherlands boss in a year's time? What's your answer? Because I feel like, for me, it's a no now. Having watched that Croatia game, I'm not confident that Koeman can turn this around. Already, I've decided that. France game, I could put to one side. Gibraltar game, maybe start to go, wow, is that it? And now, but I thought, well, it's Gibraltar, the players maybe being so bothered. But now, this Croatia game to me said, this isn't going to get any better, I don't think, is it?
Yeah, it's difficult because you're sort of dealing with the KNVB, who aren't the best at making quick decisions and the best at things like this. When things are going wrong, they sort of leave it for another couple of games to see if it gets any better, and then only take action when you're out of the Euros, and then it'll be okay. Now we can sack them. So whether you'll be in a year's time, my answer would be I hope so, because that means it's turned around and the Netherlands have maybe won tomorrow and then beaten Greece and Ireland in September. Everything's going okay and we're going to make the Euros. But if it goes wrong on Sunday, the confidence goes down for September. And if September goes, if that's not 2 wins in September, if it's a win and a loss, then I start to fear for him, because yeah, it's all about making the Euros, and if that's under threat, then Koeman's gonna get hammered in the press, and that's when it starts to turn. I don't think they're there yet. I think the Dutch press are still very, very sympathetic towards Koeman, and you saw in the press conference before the game against Croatia where the questions were sort of like, "Oh, you seemed angry during the last period. Oh, you got to turn it around," sort of thing. Like, it's not yet like, what are you playing at? Why is this player not there? Like, why did you make that decision? It's not getting at him yet enough to warrant that he's going to get sacked anytime soon. I think that will change in September if it doesn't go well. I think these 2 games you can sort of say, they're friendlies, don't matter. End of the season, tiredness. September will be the time that if that doesn't go right, that's when Koeman should start to fear.
So I guess in part answer to my question, you don't see him getting sacked after this international break, and you think because of the Netherlands KVB dilly dallying like they always do, they give managers too long, that it could be that it only takes a dire situation in about a year's time, or in 4-6 months, whatever it is, for them to pull the trigger. And it's a shame we can't do something earlier. If this Italy game is another disappointment, how does it get any better? It just feels like there are too many things to fix, and it needs someone. I mentioned it on Twitter. I think it needs a foreign coach. I think it needs something really quite different this time, to come in and change things quite drastically. What are your thoughts on that, Mike? And I did say Pep Guardiola in my tweet as well. That's just because he once mentioned he would love to manage the Netherlands. I'm sure there are lots of other top quality coaches out there, but imagine what he would do with them.
Yeah, like it's kind of like what Abdul said after the game. I think he said this in a way that it might come down to the fact that Koeman gets sacked and then they bring in a new coach for sort of like the playoffs, because the Netherlands have that caveat that because they reached the last four, it doesn't matter if they finish bottom in their group for the qualifiers, they're going to be in the playoffs anyway. So like the KNVB will look at that and say, right, we've got basically 2 chances to qualify to get to this tournament, and then they'll probably evaluate after that. I think you're right. Right now, if you look across who's available in terms of Dutch coaches, it's very, very sparse. Now, one that a lot of people might think is unpopular, but you could do worse than Ron Jans, I think. But that's basically it, because Van Nistelrooy is not ready yet. Van Bronckhorst isn't ready yet. And then who have you got? No one, because the best managers are all tied up in jobs. So until one of them becomes available and decides he wants it, because everyone was fantasizing about Arne Slot, not Arne Slot, and Peter Bosch. He was the one that everybody wanted in charge of the Netherlands at one point. But now he's at PSV, so he's not available. So if they did decide to sack Koeman, which, yeah, I can't see happening yet. Like, I think you'll have at least another couple of international windows before they do pull a trigger like that. But yeah, I think it would have to be foreign. And I don't know how that would go down in some sections of the Netherlands, but you need to bring in that. I think it needs something fresh. The players are too comfortable. I think that you see people like Van Dijk under Van Gaal was kind of like moaning a little the fact that, oh, the formation's not what I want to play. And then when Koeman comes back in, they're all like, "Yay, like we're really happy now. Koeman's back. We're playing the way we want to." I think it's a bit comfortable. Even I think that maybe a couple of assistant coaches need to come in. Maybe like Koeman's staff needs to change, because again, it's all just too comfortable. It's his brother, and it's somebody needs to come in and just basically like put a rocket up some of these players. Maybe that's what Eric Davids could have done. Like just somebody that comes in and goes, right, what are you playing at? Like, and just shouts at them, and like takes that lethargic, lackadaisical like attitude away from them. Because when was the last time like Van Dijk had a really, really good game for the Netherlands? It was probably the last Nations League under Koeman. Like under Van Gaal, he was still a bit shaky at times. Now he's awful. Like when was the last time he had a really good game? It's because he's too comfortable. He knows he's undroppable. He knows he's captain, and his mind just goes elsewhere. And he's like, when you mention Van Dijk, everyone goes, "Oh, you can't drop him." But even the Liverpool fans will tell you at the moment that they're not happy with him after the season because he made a lot of mistakes. So until somebody comes in and then has no sort of affinity to Dutch football, or has like a preference of a club in the Netherlands, or has that ties, they can just come in and just be like, right, this isn't working. You either play the way I want to, play with the attitude I want, or you're dropped. Then nothing's going to change, because we keep seeing the same players get called up. Daley Blind's in there for no reason. Wijnaldum's in there for no reason. Van Dijk's still starting, even though he keeps making mistake after mistake. The players that are getting substituted during games are all the newer ones, the more experienced ones stay on. None of it makes sense. The questions to come in the press don't make any sense because it's all too comfortable. It's just, yeah, I think we're just getting a bit lazy and lethargic behind the scenes, and something needs to change. But I don't think it'll happen for another couple of international breaks if it all starts to go wrong.
I think ultimately you're right. That's what will happen. It's going to be a dire situation that does it for the KVB, but I wish it weren't. I wish that if I don't think the Italy game is good enough, that they'll do something then. But yeah, it won't be. This podcast seems to turn something else, isn't it? Of complaining about his current Netherlands and picking out some of his players that haven't been good enough. But I do need to ask, Mike, what is your prediction for this game? You're normally so positive when it comes to Netherlands, and I'm feeling negative about this. I think Italy will win this. I think it will be close, as in more competitive than the Croatia game, because the second half was mostly Croatia, and I was so surprised when Netherlands brought it back to 2-2 because they didn't deserve it. Croatia got what they deserved in the end. But if I were to predict this one, I think it's going to be 2-1 to Italy. Probably a better performance, but still one that is not going to be showing of a Netherlands team that could be amongst the favourites of the Euros. It's going to be one again where they show that they're a level beneath these top 10 international teams in the world, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm usually positive. I'd have to say that no one's going to go out and win this one 3-0, but I think it'll be a 1-1 and then go into extra time, and then Italy win it in extra time, because I think Netherlands will give up again in extra time, and it'll take the win then. And then you'll get the excuses of it's been a long, hard season. We just need to go on a break, and we'll be better in September when the games actually mean something. Like in terms of European qualification, I think that's what we'll get tomorrow. Sorry, on Sunday. And yeah, I think it'll be the same sort of substitutions. For me, like one other thing I just want to bring up, the fact is that I know I keep harping on about him, but Sven Botman is there and he's not made his debut yet. And done a 21 Euro start in 5 days' time, and Sven Botman could have been playing at that. So if you're not going to even give him a game in these two games, you've taken him away from under 21s. I know Sven Botman probably doesn't want to play at that because then he'd be, later back to his club and has won that. But why pick him? I mean, you know you can play at that tournament and then just not even give him any minutes as well. It just doesn't make sense to me when someone's had such a good season and you're not even giving them the time of day to actually come on and play when your centre backs aren't exactly impressing in the game. I don't get it, but we'll see if he comes on against Italy. I hope he does. And I hope we see Joey Veerman as well, because I think that we should have seen him at some point as well against Croatia, but we didn't. So if those two things happen, if we get to see some debuts, at least that gives us something to be like, oh, well, we've seen some debuts. We'll get to summer. But yeah, I can see it being another defeat. Then we go away for the summer and hope that some players emerge in the first couple of weeks, a couple of months next season in great form, or September could be a bit dire.
I was looking forward to this international break. The fact Ajax players almost being dispelled from the squad entirely, only a couple left. And it gave me hope. Koeman was going to change a few things, change his ways a little. But we've just been very underwhelming so far, even though it only has been one game. Different team selection. Actually, I think before kickoff, people were really rating the lineup that Koeman put out. People say it's finally a good lineup was what I saw on several occasions. I wonder whether we could see Veerman before the international break started. Veerman was speaking about how Koeman was trying to raise his game to go to that next level. He's mid-20s, I think now, almost getting with PSV. Is he going to get that big move after PSV? Veerman isn't quite that stage of his development yet, and because of that, he's not going to consider to be the number 10 for the Netherlands. So, what be a good player. It would be good to see Botman as well coming in. But also, if Biles had a poor game, does Noppert come back in, like you said? That would be nice to see. So there are a few players in the periphery, but Koeman's not changing for the sake of it. But I would have liked to have seen him go, this one isn't so big, and therefore I want to bring in these 4 or 5 players that are in my thinking for September, but I need to see them in a bit closer action. There are a few players that seem to have had 0 caps for quite a while, but have been running around the squad. We just want to see them. We want to see what they can do. Yeah. Any final thoughts from you, Mike, before we sign off for today?
Yeah, obviously we're Netherlands supporters, and it's never nice doing podcasts like the ones that we've been doing recently, because for a while under Van Gaal, it seemed to be heading towards the World Cup. Everything was so like, oh, this is great. Like, it's positive. Like, we can maybe go to the World Cup and win it. And then I thought Koeman coming back, I was a big fan of his first term of spell in charge, because he seemed to take everything, he turned the Netherlands around from what they were before that, and he got us back to tournaments, and then he left. And then obviously his managerial career has exploded badly since then at Barcelona. But I thought, if he can bring that energy that he brought the first term to Netherlands, then everything will be okay. You just continue on this upward trajectory for the Netherlands. But it's not happened. And the worrying thing for me is that if you look ahead to September, the player pool for the Netherlands is so small at the moment. Like, if you're France, if you had a couple of bad games, and you probably 20, 30 players that weren't in the squad at the moment, you could be like, well, we can give one of them a chance. Right now, if you're thinking right now, who's going to come in September and not like change this around? You got De Ligt, and then you've got Memphis. But who at the moment else other than that is Netherlands quality is going to be okay? Well, we can turn to him, and then maybe he'll do something. It's quite small, and you need these new youngsters to come through. Maybe somebody like Branko van den Boomen, if he comes in Ajax and turns their fortunes around, can maybe come to like Netherlands, but he's 26, 27. Now you got Stein Spearings maybe going to PSV, but again, he's mid 20s. It's worrying that right now that Koeman doesn't really have any options to turn to if things start to go wrong. And so you need these players. These are the ones that need to turn around. And they've had 3 games now. They're not performing. It's not. I see a lot of criticisms for Xavi Simons. It's not Xavi Simons that's letting down this Netherlands team. It's not, Cody Gakpo. It's more Van Dijk. It's more Frankie de Jong needs to raise his game when he's playing for Netherlands. It's more the leaders of this team that need to take it by the scruff of the neck and say, this is not going right. Let's do something a bit different. It's not Geert Trouder's fault. It's not Xavi Simons' fault. He needs the big players to come in and start playing, because they're not doing it at the moment. Like, Tuin Koopmeiners at his age, and the way he's playing for Atalanta, he should be coming into this Netherlands side and being all right. I'm not going to be one of the leaders of this team, but he's done absolutely nothing again in the Netherlands side. So that's what Koeman needs to find. He needs to find a spine of leaders and key players that's going to actually turn this around for him, and be ones that take it all by the scruff of the neck and lead the Netherlands to Euros. Because if he loses tomorrow, or Sunday, I keep saying tomorrow, Sunday, and some of these players get a bit annoyed with him, then they're the ones that are going to turn around, and then they're the ones that end up getting him sacked in the end. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens on Sunday. If it's an improved performance, again, if it's improved, it doesn't matter. It's once in September we see. We're going to the summer. We'll see what moves players make, what transfers they make, and then we just need to hope, fingers crossed, that 2 or 3 players come out of nowhere like Mats Wiefer's done at Feyenoord, and then they can get added to the squad, because right now the depth that this squad has isn't good enough to be anywhere near the top teams in Europe.
Yeah, it's this match preview became something else, isn't it? A bit of a moan, bit of a purge of how we're feeling. That it's not good enough, and it shouldn't be like this with a handful of good players coming through. Yes, there isn't a lot to turn to aside from that. Maybe that's what it is, lack of pressure. I don't know, but there's a good core to this team, and it needs someone to take it by the scruff of the neck. What you want to say about it, whichever idiom you want, and make the Netherlands into a team that can win big competitions, get to the finals of them. because it'll be wasted if someone can't. Mike, thanks for joining me, and thanks everybody for watching along. If you're still watching now, do make sure you give this a like. We have plenty of likes, plenty of attention on our last match preview and live stream after the game. Subscribe to Football-Oranje if you're new, and comment down below what do you think about Koeman, the players, the lineup for this game, the predictions for the game against Italy. And yeah, we'll definitely be doing a live stream after the third place game against Italy. So do stay tuned to at full time. We won't be long after that. We'll be on air, and come and join us for the live stream. We had tons of comments and people watching along live last time. Yeah, it's great to have an Evans community that speak English. So that's bye from us for now, and we'll see you after the game against Italy.